Welcome, learners, to the deep dive. You know that feeling, right? You're constantly busy running from one thing to the next. But like at the end of the day, you feel both overworked and kind of underutilized. It's like you're making, what is it, a millimeter of progress in a million directions. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a book that, well, promises a way out of that cycle. Greg McKeown's Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. It's really not about how to get more things done, but how to get the right things done. Think of this as your essential guide, distilling the most impactful takeaways from the book.
Yeah, and what's really interesting here is that this isn't just another time management book, or
Yeah.
just a bunch of productivity hacks. It's really proposing a fundamental shift in how you think, a disciplined, systematic approach to figuring out where your highest contribution actually lies, and then making the execution of those things almost effortless.
Right. So our mission today is to kind of unpack these core ideas and the practical strategies, give you a shortcut, maybe, to understanding how to live by design, not just by default. Get ready to shift your perspective on, well, productivity and purpose. Okay, so let's unpack this. What is essentialism at its core? And maybe why do so many of us struggle to live this way? Why do we feel like we're just treading water?
Well, McKeown kicks things off with Dieter Rams, the legendary designer at Braun. His whole philosophy was summed up in three German words: weniger, aber besser. Less, but better. Think about his revolutionary record player. It had that clear plastic cover, removed all the clutter. It was a bold move then, maybe even risky. But it perfectly illustrates this core idea. Essentialism is that relentless, disciplined pursuit of less but better in, well, pretty much every part of your life.
So it's about being incredibly selective, isn't it? Really choosing carefully. The book paints this picture, right? The non-essentialist divides energy everywhere,
Yes.
leading to that feeling we mentioned, a millimeter of progress in a million directions.
Exactly.
Whereas the essentialist, they invest in fewer things, but they make real significant progress in what truly matters most. They just reject that idea that you can fit it all in.
Which brings up a key question. Why are we so often non-essentialists? Why do we keep trying to cram more in? The book points to a few powerful trends. First, just too many choices. We're bombarded. It leads to what they call decision fatigue. Peter Drucker pointed this out, this huge shift where we have all these choices, but we're frankly unprepared to manage them.
And it's not just the sheer number of options, is it? There's a social element too.
Precisely. That's the second point. Too much social pressure. Technology has just amplified what McKeown calls opinion overload. It makes it so much harder to filter what we should focus on versus what everyone else thinks we should be doing. And third, there's that pervasive myth, you can have it all, which, according to the book, is especially damaging today. I mean, think about it. The word priority was singular for like 500 years. Then around the 1900s, we pluralized it to priorities, as if we could actually have multiple first things. It doesn't really make logical sense, does it?
No, it doesn't when you put it like that. And the cost of this undisciplined pursuit of more, it can be huge, can't it? The book shares that really powerful personal story from the author himself. He almost missed his daughter's birth, her first hours, for a client meeting. And that regret, he realized, came from a deeper truth. If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will.
Exactly. And that painful moment, it sparked his inexhaustible obsession, he calls it, with understanding why smart people make these kinds of choices and how we can actually tap into our potential instead. He lays out this concept called the paradox of success. Basically, clarity leads to success.
Okay?
Success brings more options and
Ooh,
opportunities.
more things coming at you.
Exactly. But then those increased options lead to diffused efforts, spreading yourself too thin, which ultimately undermines the very clarity that got you success in the first place. You end up distracted from your highest point of contribution.
Wow. Okay, so we get the problem.
Yeah.
This undisciplined pursuit of more, fueled by all these outside pressures and maybe our own misconceptions. So what does this mean for us? How do we actually become essentialists? How do we break free? The book does lay out a path, right?
It really does. It starts with a core mindset shift built on three fundamental realities. First, the invincible power of individual choice. We can choose how we spend our energy and time. We actually have agency. The author tells that story about quitting law school. He realized he'd implicitly chosen to go just by refusing to choose not to go.
Interesting distinction.
It's about overcoming what psychologists Seligman and Mayer called learned helplessness, where you stop trying because you believe you have no control. We often mistakenly think, I have to do it all, because we forget or don't believe we have a choice.
That's a huge realization that we always have a choice, even if it feels buried under obligations. Okay, what's the second reality?
Second, the prevalence of noise. We have to realize the unimportance of practically everything. It sounds harsh, but most things vying for our attention are just noise. Only a very few are truly vital. Think of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. Often, 20% of your effort yields 80% of your results.
Right.
Or Warren Buffett, he says 90% of his wealth came from just 10 investments, making big bets on the essential few. An essentialist learns to discern more, filter more, so they can ultimately do less, but better.
See the signal through the noise.
Yeah.
Okay. And the third reality, this one sounds maybe the most challenging.
Yeah, it can be. Third is the reality of trade-offs. Simply accepting I can do anything but not everything. You have to choose. Southwest Airlines under Herb Kelleher is a classic example. They deliberately chose to be low cost, point to point. That meant saying no to meals, assigned seats, baggage transfers.
They knew what they weren't.
Exactly. They understood saying yes to everything meant they couldn't excel at their core thing. Continental Airlines tried to do both and failed. Or think about the Johnson & Johnson Tylenol crisis back in the 80s. They made a brutal trade-off based on their company credo. Pull everything off the shelves. Customer safety over, $100 million in losses?
Wow.
The point is we have to make choices. If we don't, others will choose for us, or circumstances will. Remember that nurse, Bronnie Ware, who worked with dying patients? A top regret she heard constantly was, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Trade-offs are central to that.
Those are really profound realities to internalize. Choice, noise, trade-offs. Okay, but the book doesn't just leave us there, right? It gives us practical, actionable ways to apply this stuff. Where do we start with the practices?
Right, let's get into the how-to. There are several key practices. First up, escape. You have to create space to think. Bill Gates is famous for his think weeks, right? Twice a year, he just goes off-grid to read and reflect deeply.
Yeah, I've heard about those.
McKeown himself used what he called monk mode to write this book blocked off 8 hours every day. No email, no calls, just deep work. This kind of uninterrupted space, it's crucial for intense concentration and actually discerning what's essential. We rarely get bored anymore, do we? We lose that time to just think.
That's such a good point. We fill every gap. So, okay, build in stillness. Once we've got that space, how do we make sure we're looking at the right things within it?
Good question. That leads straight to the second practice. Look, see what really matters, not just the surface stuff. He tells the story of Nora Ephron, the writer, and her journalism teacher. The class got facts about some faculty meeting. Everyone wrote the obvious lead, who, what, when, where.
The standard stuff.
But the teacher said, the real lead is, there will be no school Thursday. It's about understanding the implication, what it actually means, why it matters for your essential goals, seeing the bigger picture.
Ah, okay. Shifting perspective, seeing the forest, not just the trees. This sounds like it requires a lot of focused mental energy, though. How do we sustain that?
Well, that brings us to a really fundamental one. Sleep. Protect the asset, and the asset is you. You hear about people like Jeff Bezos prioritizing 8 hours. It's not lazy, it's strategic. There is research on top violinists. The very best ones actually slept more than the good ones. That sleep enabled more focused, high-quality practice during their waking hours.
Interesting.
Charles Czeisler over at Harvard, a sleep expert, he calls sleep deprivation the performance killer. He says it's like having a 0.1% blood alcohol level.
Wow.
Getting a full night's sleep or even just a strategic nap, it literally increases your brain power. It helps consolidate information, enhances problem solving.
Okay, yeah, I think we can all relate to feeling like our brain's just not firing right without enough sleep.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So once we're rested, thinking clearly, how do we make those tough calls about what to actually say yes to?
That's where SELECT comes in. Using really tough criteria, McKeown proposes the 90% rule. Basically, if you're evaluating an opportunity, score it out of 100 based on how well it aligns with your essential criteria. If it's not a 90 or above,
It's a 0.
it's a 0, or at least a clear no. It forces you past the maybe, the good enough. It's the difference between asking, is there any chance I might wear this sweater someday, versus, do I absolutely love this and will I wear it often?
Right.
He mentions the Vitso Furniture Company's hiring process. Their rule is, if it isn't a clear yes, then it's a clear no. That kind of ruthless selectivity.
That's a really practical filter. Okay, but what about stuff we've already said yes to? Things we're committed to that maybe now we realize aren't essential. That feels harder.
It is harder.
Yeah.
Which leads to uncommit. Having the courage to cut your losses, even if you've already invested time or energy. We're all susceptible to the sunk cost bias, right? That tendency to keep pouring resources into something just because we already started.
Like watching a bad movie till the end because you already paid for the ticket.
Exactly. Or governments funding the Concorde jet long after it was clear it was a financial black hole. McKeown suggests a reverse pilot. It's a neat idea. Just quietly stop doing a non-essential activity for a bit. See if anyone actually notices or complains.
Ah, a low-risk way to test the waters.
Yeah. It can be a less confrontational way to start uncommitting and overcome that sunk cost pull.
Reverse pilot. I like that. Makes letting go less daunting. But sometimes you just have to say no directly, right? That can be awkward. How do we do that gracefully?
It definitely takes practice. That's the 7th practice, dare. Learning the power of a graceful no. Think about Rosa Parks. Her quiet but firm no literally changed history. It takes courage, absolutely. But often people respect you more for clarity and boundaries, even if they're initially disappointed. Peter Drucker, apparently, was a master of the graceful no. He famously kept a very big waste paper basket for invitations and requests that weren't essential to his work.
Love it.
You can learn techniques right. Separate the decision, I can't do this request, from the relationship. I value connecting with you. Focus on the trade-off involved. If I do X, I won't be able to do Y, which is my priority. Or use phrases like, you are welcome to X what they want. I am willing to Y what you can offer. It acknowledges their need while clearly stating your limit.
That's a really helpful framework. Acknowledging while defining your boundary. Okay, so once we've cleared the decks, set our no's, how do we protect the space for the essential things we are doing?
That's absolutely critical. Which brings us to limit. Setting clear boundaries. There's a story about Jin Young, a tech employee in Korea. She refused an urgent, last-minute request from her boss because it conflicted with time she'd blocked for her wedding planning.
Wow, takes guts.
It did. But it actually led her manager to realize the whole team had unhealthy dynamics around expectations and boundaries. Or think about Clayton Christensen, the Harvard prof. He famously refused to work evenings or weekends. He dedicated that time to his family and his faith. And, his career didn't exactly suffer.
Oh, kidding.
Boundaries aren't limiting. They're actually liberating. They protect your ability to contribute your best where it matters most. Don't let others, as McKeown puts it, rob you of your problems by making their urgency your emergency. Or watering their lawn with your sprinkler, metaphorically speaking.
That's a great metaphor. Build those fences before you need them. But even with great boundaries, life happens, right? The unexpected always crops up.
Always. Which is precisely why buffer is so important. Preparing for the unexpected. Building in slack. Remember the story of Joseph in the Bible? Saving Egypt from famine by building up reserves, a buffer, during the years of plenty?
Right, the 7 fat years, 7 lean years.
Exactly. In practical terms, we can add, say, a 50% buffer to our time estimates for projects. We humans are notoriously bad at estimating the planning fallacy. We consistently underestimate how long things will take.
Guilty as charged.
Roald Amundsen, who beat Robert Falcon Scott to the South Pole, a big part of his success was extreme preparation. He built in buffers, anticipated problems, had backup plans for his backup plans. Scott, tragically, didn't have that buffer.
So plan for contingencies, build in that margin, rather than just hoping everything goes perfectly.
Yeah.
Okay, and as we're moving forward on these essential things, how do we keep the momentum going, especially if it's a long haul?
Yeah, that's key. 10th practice. Progress. Start small and celebrate the small wins. There's a cool example from Richmond, Canada. They gave out positive tickets to youth caught doing something good, like wearing a bike helmet or helping someone, just small recognitions.
Instead of just negative tickets.
Exactly. And it created this positive momentum, encouraging more good behavior. McKeown talks about minimal viable progress, like when writing, maybe just share a core idea on Twitter first. See if it resonates. Then maybe a blog post. Then the chapter.
Breaking it down.
It builds confidence and momentum. Research by Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer found that the single biggest motivator at work is simply making progress in meaningful work, even small wins.
That's incredibly encouraging. You don't need giant leaps. Just keep taking small steps.
Okay, last one. How do we make all this feel less like constant effortful work and more? The magic ingredient, flow. Embrace the power of routine. Routines basically automate the essential, freeing up your limited mental energy for more complex thinking or unexpected challenges. Michael Phelps, the swimmer, his whole pre-race routine was meticulously choreographed, down to the number of arm swings. It put him in the zone, almost on autopilot for the basics.
So you could focus on the race itself.
Precisely. Charles Duhigg, in The Power of Habit, explains how routines shift the mental load to the basal ganglia, our brain's habit center. It frees up the prefrontal cortex for deliberate thought. Jack Dorsey, co-founder of Twitter and Square, famously uses themed days for his week, like Mondays for management, Tuesdays for product, etc. It brings structure and focus. It's about designing your life so the essential stuff happens almost automatically.
Wow, okay, that is a really comprehensive toolkit. Escape, look, sleep, select, uncommit, dare, limit, buffer, progress, flow. Each one really hammers home that idea of conscious choice and deliberate action.
Absolutely. And if you zoom out, all these practices, they're really leading towards one ultimate goal, being truly present and focused.
Which brings us nicely to that idea of focus. What's important now?
Right. So the ancient Greeks had these two concepts of time. Yeah. There was chronos, that's the clock ticking, chronological time, quantitative. But then there was kairos, that's more like the opportune moment, the right time, the quality of the moment. Essentialists, the book argues, strive to live more in kairos. They're focused on the present. Larry Gelwick's, that super successful high school rugby coach, he trained his team to constantly ask themselves on the field, what's important now, W-I-N?
W-I-N, okay.
Or Jiro Ono, the world-famous sushi chef from that documentary. When he's making sushi, he is entirely in that moment, intense, singular focus on the present task. It's not multitasking. It's like multi-focusing on the now.
Living in Kairos, I like that. So bringing it all together, what does this mean for how we actually live our lives? Is essentialism just a set of tools, or is it something deeper?
It's definitely positioned as something deeper. It's not just something you do now and then, it's something you strive to be. It becomes a lifestyle, a different way, a simpler way of doing everything, as McKeown puts it. It's a fundamental approach to how you live, how you lead. You can see echoes of it in figures like Gandhi, who talked about reducing himself to zero, focusing only on his core mission, or even modern leaders known for focus, like the Dalai Lama, or maybe controversially, Steve Jobs' people, who seem to have an unwavering focus on what they deemed essential.
And the benefits, they sound pretty transformative. More clarity, definitely more control, maybe more joy even, and ultimately, a life with more meaning and impact. The author talks about it being like a quiet revolution starting within each person.
Yeah, and perhaps the biggest benefit is living without regret. There's a really poignant story near the end of the book about a father. His 3-year-old daughter had passed away, and he was looking back through his home videos. And he realized they were full of the surroundings, the sights, the views, the places they went. But there were very few close-ups of her. He'd been so busy capturing the non-essential context that he'd failed to capture what was truly essential.
That's heartbreaking.
It really is. And it's such a powerful reminder that, as McKeown says, at the very, very end, everything else will fade into insignificance by comparison.
Right.
The whole point of this disciplined pursuit of less is to allow you to truly capture and live those essential moments, to build a life you're genuinely proud of.
So bringing it back to you, the listener.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive, it really challenges us, doesn't it?
Hmm.
It asks us to make a pretty profound choice about how we operate. We've journeyed through these core ideas and the powerful practices of essentialism today, from making those deliberate choices and discerning the vital few, all the way to protecting your sleep and setting clear boundaries. Hopefully this deep dive into essentialism gives you a clear pathway to start reclaiming your time and your focus.
Yeah, it's fundamentally about consciously designing your life. Taking the reins rather than letting it be designed by default or, by other people's agendas. And the rewards he promises are pretty immense. Clarity, control, and, a really profound sense of purpose. Living a life that genuinely matters to you.
It's definitely a challenge, though, stepping off that treadmill of more, and onto the path of less but better to really try and live a life that matters. Reminds me of that Mary Oliver poem, Tell Me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Maybe the challenge from this deep dive is just to pause, reflect on that question, and start embracing the essential. I mean, really, do you think you'll ever regret living a life that feels truer to yourself?
Probably not. And we'd encourage you, really, just start small. Don't feel like you have to overhaul everything overnight. Maybe pick just one practice we talked about. Try the 90% rule on your next big decision. Or just add a 50% buffer to one task you're planning this week. See how it feels. Your journey to becoming an essentialist, it really just begins with a single, deliberate choice.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep making those essential choices.